welcome to today's deep dive. We are getting into something that is honestly a massive radical re-examination of financial literacy.
Yeah, it really flips everything upside down.
It does. We're pulling from the foundational concepts of Robert Kiyosaki's iconic personal finance book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, along with the critical mechanics from his follow-up, the Cash Flow Quadrant.
Right, and our materials contrast these two very influential but completely diametrically opposed figures. You have the highly educated but financially struggling poor dad, and then this 8th grade dropout who built a massive empire, the rich dad.
Exactly. And, by looking at these two totally different philosophies, we kind of strip away all that dense theory they teach in standard business schools.
Oh, absolutely. We're looking at the raw mechanics of money, like how cash actually flows through a person's life on a daily basis.
And why the conventional rules of money usually just lead straight to a dead end. So our mission today is to decode the real reason the middle class gets stuck in this endless financial hamster wheel.
Yeah, we really want to challenge the accepted dogma today and help you, the listener, shortcut your way to actual financial independence.
But to do that, we have to start by dropping a massive counterintuitive bombshell right out of the gate.
Oh, this is the part that always gets people.
It really does. So I want you to imagine you are standing in front of your home. You've got the keys in your hand.
Yeah.
You're looking at the front door, and you're feeling this incredible sense of pride, right?
Sure, it's the classic dream.
Exactly. You have poured your life savings into this place. It's the ultimate symbol of success. You're thinking to yourself, I've made it. I finally own a massive asset.
But if you look just a little closer beneath the surface of that whole American dream, you find a completely different reality.
Right.
That beautiful home. It isn't sitting on some solid foundation of wealth. It's actually sitting on a massive invisible drain.
Just quietly siphoning your cash away month after month, year after year.
Exactly. It's the ultimate financial illusion.
That primary residence you were so proud to own, the one you diligently pay a mortgage on every single month. I hate to break it to you, but it is not an asset.
Under this framework, it's likely your biggest liability, and it is quietly emptying your pockets.
Which is just, it's a harsh reality check, because we all know the textbook definitions of these terms.
Oh, sure. You ask anyone with a pulse, and they'll tell you an asset is something valuable you own, and a liability is a debt you owe.
Right, but the insight here isn't just about redefining words for the fun of it. It's about exposing this massive psychological blind spot.
Which is exactly why brilliant people, doctors, lawyers, top executives who totally understand complex financial literacy, they completely abandon basic math the second they buy a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs.
They let social expectations completely override a simple balance sheet.
Yeah, they do. The rich dad philosophy operates on the KISS principle.
Keep it super simple.
Exactly. Keep it super simple. We are talking about basic cash flow. The definition is stripped down to its absolute core.
Which is just. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket.
That's it. It's that simple.
So it's kind of like an asset is essentially a goose that lays golden eggs, right?
Right.
While a liability is like this pet tiger that you constantly have to buy expensive meat for just to keep it fed.
I love that analogy. Yes, the tiger is a perfect way to look at it. The cognitive dissonance happens because highly educated professionals earn these massive salaries, right? But they fill their lives with pet tigers, things that take money out of their pockets while calling them golden geese.
And so they struggle financially their entire lives. But wait, I have to push back here because my accountant and my bank, they both let me list my car, my luxury watches, even my golf clubs on the asset side of my balance sheet.
Right, of course they do. Accepted accounting practices allow that. It inflates your net worth on paper.
So why is that wrong?
Because you have to apply that simple cash flow test. Is that new SUV putting money in your pocket every month?
Definitely not.
No. It requires a car payment, premium gas, high insurance premiums, constant maintenance. It is bleeding cash.
And it loses a quarter of its resale value the second you drive it off the lot.
Exactly.
I've always found that bank loan process so fascinating. The bank actually wants you to list all those depreciating consumer goods as assets because it makes you look better on paper.
Right, which allows them to lend you more money.
Yeah. They are fully aware those items don't generate income. But the moment you try to actually liquidate those assets in a real emergency, you realize they're worth a fraction of what you claimed.
Your net worth is largely just a paper illusion. which is exactly why relying on that traditional balance sheet leads to the most devastating financial mistake people make.
Buying the primary residence.
Exactly. Following the standard societal script, people buy a house, label it an asset, and unwittingly lock up their entire financial future.
The poor dad proudly claimed, "Our home is our largest investment and our greatest asset."
But the rich dad offered a very stark warning. He said, "My house is a liability, and if your house is your largest investment, you're in trouble."
Let's look at the actual mechanics of why the house is a liability under this definition. Every single month, that house mandates that money leaves your account.
Yeah, you've got the mortgage payment, property taxes, homeowner's insurance.
The inevitable maintenance, like when the roof leaks.
Oh, the HOA fees, the utilities. It requires constant feeding.
It goes deeper than just the monthly bills, too. The sources say that buying a house that is too expensive, too early in life instead of building an investment portfolio triggers 3 massive hidden losses.
Right. The first is the loss of time.
Because if you tie up a huge percentage of your net worth in home equity, that is timer along. Those funds are not parked in other assets.
Exactly. Assets that could be compounding and growing in value independently of your labor.
And then there's the second loss, which is the loss of additional capital.
Yeah, the money you are forced to spend on a new roof or landscaping or a broken HVAC system.
That's money that could have been deployed into income-generating investments. Every dollar spent fixing the liability is a dollar stolen from your future asset column.
It's just gone. And then the third hidden cost is arguably the most damaging, which is the loss of education.
Wait, how does buying a house cost you education?
Well, because so many middle-class families count their house and maybe their 401k as their entire financial universe, they never have liquid capital to invest in standalone businesses or real estate.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, since they don't have the money to invest, they never make investments. And since they never invest, they never gain the real-world experience required to become a sophisticated investor.
They miss out on private equity deals or syndications because those opportunities are restricted to people who already have liquid capital and know how the game is played.
Precisely. They price themselves out of financial education.
So to the listener, pause for a second and think about your own mortgage check. When you write that check on the first of the month, are you actually building your own wealth? Or are you just working as a highly paid employee for the bank?
The bank is certainly getting guaranteed collateralized cash flow from you every 30 days.
They definitely are. But, this is usually where the middle-class defense kicks in. The immediate pushback I always hear is, but renting is just throwing money away. At least with a house, I'm building equity. I own something at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that sounds incredibly logical until you actually look at the amortization schedule and the tax mechanics.
Right.
In the first 10 years of a standard 30-year mortgage, the vast majority of your monthly payment goes directly toward interest, not principal.
You aren't building meaningful equity at all. You are heavily subsidizing the bank's profit margins.
Exactly. And furthermore, even with potential tax deductions for mortgage interest, you are paying for all your other home expenses. The principal, the maintenance, the property taxes, with after-tax dollars.
Oh, let's break down what after-tax dollars actually means, because I think it's the core of the trap.
Go for it.
So, you earn $1 at your job. Before you even see it, the government takes, let's say, 30 cents. You are left with 70 cents. You then take that 70 cents and pay the bank for your mortgage and the city for your property taxes.
It's an incredibly inefficient way to operate.
It is. You are committing your future labor to the bank, paying them with heavily taxed income.
And that after-tax drain doesn't just hurt your savings rate, it's the exact mechanism that forces people onto this endless financial treadmill.
The rat race.
Yes, the rat race. Let's look at how that cycle actually starts according to the sources. It's a classic pattern. A young couple gets married, they're living in a cheap apartment, and they're successfully saving money.
Good for them.
Right. But then they decide they need more space, so they buy a home. Suddenly they have a mortgage, property taxes, and a need for new furniture to fill the house.
So they buy the furniture on credit.
Exactly. And then they have a child. Expenses rise, they realize they're squeezed, so they work harder.
They put in the overtime, they get promoted. Let's say they land a massive $15,000 raise. They celebrate, thinking they finally have some breathing room.
But the math of the rat race kicks in immediately. That $15,000 raise pushes them into a higher marginal tax bracket.
Oh, bracket creep.
Exactly, bracket creep. Between federal taxes, state taxes, and payroll taxes, maybe 40% of that raise evaporates before they even see it.
Wow. So the take-home pay only increases by, what, 9,000?
Right. But because they feel wealthier, they decide to upgrade their car. So they take on a new $500 monthly payment, which eats up $6,000 of that new money.
And then their local municipality reassesses their home value, and their property taxes go up by $3,000 a year.
And there it goes. The $15,000 raise literally resulted in a net cash flow decrease.
This is the leaky bucket paradox. The middle class thinks a pay raise is the solution to all their problems. They're pouring water into the bucket faster, but the tax and lifestyle holes at the bottom of the bucket automatically expand to match the pressure.
The bucket never fills up.
Never.
And then the credit card balances creep up because their cash flow is actually tighter than before the promotion.
And that's when the bank inevitably calls with great news.
Your house has appreciated.
Right. So they offer a bill consolidation loan, folding all that high-interest consumer debt into a new 30-year mortgage.
It feels like a lifeline to them. The monthly payments drop, they breathe a sigh of relief, and they tell themselves they are brilliant financial managers.
But all they have done is stretch short-term consumer debt over 3 decades, guaranteeing the bank a massive return on interest.
Exactly. And they cleared the credit cards, which just means those cards now have a zero balance.
So the next time they want a vacation or a new appliance,
They use the empty cards, and the cycle starts all over again. Their liabilities column has exploded, all under the guise of financial progress.
they are running faster on the treadmill, sweating more, exhausting themselves, but they haven't moved an inch geographically.
If you step back and look at the geometry of this treadmill, the middle class is dedicating their entire productive life to 3 masters, and none of them are their own family.
Right. First, you work for the company. Your daily efforts, your overtime, your innovations, they all go toward enriching the business owner and the shareholders.
Second, you work for the government. The book notes that most people work from January to May just to pay their federal, state, and local taxes.
You are essentially a government employee for the first 5 months of the year.
Yep. And third, you work for the bank, spending the rest of the year servicing your mortgage, auto loans, and credit cards.
And the fuel keeping people running on this treadmill, it boils down to 2 foundational human emotions: fear and greed.
It is absolutely not logic driving these decisions. The fear of not having money, the fear of eviction, the fear of starving, that pushes you out the door to go to a job you might despise.
The fear of missing a bill payment forces you to clock in.
And then, the second the paycheck arrives, the fear briefly subsides, and desire takes the wheel.
Greed. You get the money, and suddenly you want the reward for your hard work. A new car, a vacation, a bigger house.
You spend the money to satisfy the greed, the bank account drains, and the fear returns.
It's an emotional loop that entirely dictates financial behavior. It's like a donkey chasing a carrot.
Exactly. But if the bank and the government are the only ones profiting from this 9-to-5 grind, the only logical escape is to stop focusing on the metric that keeps you trapped, your salary, and start focusing on what the bank focuses on.
We're just acquiring assets.
Right. This requires a total mental pivot. The middle class focuses on the income statement, desperately trying to boost their hourly rate.
While the wealthy focus entirely on the balance sheet, obsessively building their asset column, you have to start minding your own business.
The book illustrates this beautifully with a story about Ray Kroc, the man who built McDonald's into a global empire.
Oh, I love this story.
Yeah, he was speaking to an MBA class at the University of Texas, and he asked the students, "What business am I in?"
And the room laughed, assuming it was a joke.
Right. Finally, a student answered, "Ray, everyone knows you're in the hamburger business."
And Ray Kroc replied, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not in the hamburger business. My business is real estate."
He understood the vital distinction between his profession and his business. Selling hamburger franchises was his profession. It generated the initial cash flow.
But his business, his true wealth-building engine, was buying the real estate beneath those franchises. He was acquiring assets.
Most people confuse their profession with their business. A person will say, "I'm a banker," or "I'm a mechanic," but they don't own the bank or the garage. They just work there.
They are dedicating their lives to minding someone else's business.
Exactly. To escape the rat race, you keep your day job, your profession, but you start minding your own business by funneling capital into your asset column.
So what is a true asset then?
Here's the reality. A true asset works 24 hours a day without you needing to be there. This includes businesses that run via systems or managers.
Because if you have to be there to run it, it's not a business, it's just a job.
Right. Assets also include income-generating real estate, stocks, bonds, notes, and royalties from intellectual property like software or patents. Anything that holds value, produces income, and has a ready market.
There is also a massive mechanical advantage to owning these assets, particularly businesses and real estate, and it comes back to how you are taxed. We talked earlier about how W-2 employees pay with after-tax dollars. The wealthy use corporate structures to completely flip that script.
Yeah, a standard employee earns money, gets taxed on that income, and tries to live on whatever is left. A corporation operates in reverse.
It earns money, spends everything it legally can on pre-tax expenses, travel, equipment, vehicles, meals, and then is only taxed on whatever's left over.
This is the legal tax shield the wealthy use to build empires, while the middle class gets crushed by bracket creep.
Once a dollar goes into your asset column, it becomes your employee. It doesn't need sleep, it doesn't ask for benefits, and it can work for generations.
But building that column requires implementing a highly controversial strategy from the classic book, The Richest Man in Babylon.
The rule is to pay yourself first.
Yes. You must prioritize funding your asset column before you pay your bills, your mortgage, or even the government.
Wait. You're saying I should invest my money first and just let the bill collectors and the IRS scream at me?
I know. When your paycheck arrives, the absolute first cut goes into your investments. Only after that money is secured in your asset column do you look at paying your rent, your utilities, and your taxes. And the crucial part is, you do this even when you are short on cash.
Look, my CPA follows standard accounting principles, and standard logic says you pay your debts first. If I take a chunk of my paycheck, lock it away in an index fund or a real estate syndication, and then look at my bills and realize I don't have enough to cover my mortgage, I am inviting total chaos.
It sounds financially reckless.
It sounds insane.
The author's own accountant had the exact same reaction. But this is the psychological genius of the strategy.
How so?
If you pay everyone else first and only invest what's left over, human nature guarantees there will be nothing left over. There is no pressure to innovate, you just quietly stay broke.
Right.
But if you pay yourself first and you come up short for your living expenses, a very specific kind of pressure builds up.
The fear returns.
Exactly, but you're using it differently. You are harnessing the fear.
Yeah.
The pressure from the bill collectors and the looming threat of the government acts like a high-intensity gym for your financial muscles.
Okay, I see.
The fear of those creditors forces your brain to wake up. It forces your financial intelligence to invent new ways to generate supplementary income to pay those bills.
You might start a side hustle, find an arbitrage opportunity, or create something to sell.
You defend your asset column like an impenetrable fortress, and you use the external pressure of your liabilities to force yourself to become smarter and more innovative.
So you're taking the exact same emotion that traps the middle class on the treadmill, the fear of not having enough money, and instead of letting it force you to beg for a raise at a job you hate, you use it as the catalyst to invent new income streams.
You outsmart the financial bullies instead of capitulating to them.
Saying I can't afford it shuts down the brain. But asking how can I afford it forces the brain to go to work.
It builds incredible internal fortitude. You stop relying on the company to take care of you. The middle class buys liabilities they incorrectly label as assets. The rich buy real assets.
They spend their time building a pipeline that will eventually deliver water automatically, rather than spending their entire lives hauling heavy buckets back and forth from the river.
That's the perfect way to summarize it.
We have uncovered a very stark reality today. Assets put money in your pocket. Liabilities take money out. That primary residence you are so proud of is eating your cash flow.
It really is.
Yeah.
Blindly following the standard script, study hard, get a safe job, buy a big house, get out of debt is a mathematical guarantee that you will work for the company, the bank, and the government until the day you retire.
It requires unlearning a lot of what society considers common sense.
But that common sense is exactly the mechanism keeping the majority of the population struggling financially, despite working incredibly hard.
You have the power to stop buying liabilities disguised as assets today. It's not more money that solves financial problems. Financial intelligence solves problems.
Absolutely.
You can choose to look at your cash flow honestly, rather than mindlessly following the financial dogma of the herd. You can choose to step off the treadmill.
It's all up to you.
As we wrap up, I want you to consider this final mind-bending concept from the text. The rich dad insisted that money is not real. He argued it is merely an illusion, a house of cards held together by mass confidence and a simple collective agreement.
It's just a made-up concept.
Right. So if money is just a game of rules we all blindly agree to play, what completely imaginary financial rule are you currently letting dictate your life? And what would happen if you decided to rewrite it tomorrow? Think about that house you're standing in front of. Is it your castle, or is it just a very expensive illusion keeping you from actual freedom? Keep digging deeper.